Tonight, details emerge about a fatal plane crash in Ontario.
Among the victims, 2 Canadian residents and a family of 5, including 3 kids.
The aircraft was destroyed.
We've got the latest right near the scene.
A defiant Andrew Scheer says he is staying. Rosie and At Issue are here.
A Manitoba employee recruitment drive takes a dig at Quebec.
And living beside a rising Great Lake, paying a devastating price.
If this breaches, we're gone. Bankrupt. Yep.
Record high water levels, not nearly enough money. This is The National.
We have new details tonight about a plane crash in Ontario that led to the deaths of all 7 people on board.
The pilot, his wife, their 3 children, and 2 friends all crammed last evening into a 6-seater airplane. They took off from this airport near Toronto, and then the plane contacted an airport about 200 kilometers away in Kingston, Ontario, moments before crashing in a wooded area nearby. The pilot bought the plane earlier this year, and as Judy Trin shows us, it was his pride and joy.
My name is Otabek Oblakulov, and this is my 1965 Piper Cherokee.
Flying was Otabek Oblakulov's passion, and 2 years after earning his pilot's certificate, the Houston engineer purchased his own plane to share his dream with his family.
I put my whole family in, put my camping gear right here in the nose compartment. All the stuff that we need in the back.
Oblakulov's family, along with his 2 other close friends, a newlywed couple from Toronto, died when his Piper Cherokee crashed.
Unfortunately, all 7 people were fatally injured.
It took an Air Force search and rescue helicopter to locate the wreckage. On the ground, Oblakulov's Kingston friends waited for answers. Oblakulov and his passengers were supposed to spend the night at Mehmet Basti's home.
No, we were waiting when they will land. They were planning to call us, and we were just trying to reach WhatsApp, normal phone, and we couldn't reach. Then we just accepted, maybe they don't have connection. The morning time, I just search on the Google. And I know the plane, I know the route, everything.
Investigators with the Transportation Safety Board are now trying to determine the cause of the crash.
It was a very steep impact, so significantly steep, and the aircraft was destroyed. So.
The TSB says it will most likely have to take the broken pieces of the plane back to its laboratory for further analysis. It will also take a close look at the maintenance record as well as the pilot's experience. Weather may also have been a factor. There was rain and strong winds.
Unfortunately, the accident happened. The condition was not the best condition to fly on for a small airplane. Personally, I will think about it 2 or 3 times before I will take my airplane to fly, because with that condition.
Oblakulov's friends say this was his first time flying in Canada.
I saw other people having their own plane and flying out of here, and kind of inspired me.
The 2 families were en route to Quebec City, a journey and lives cut short. Judy Trin, CBC News, Kingston.
Okay, to Ottawa now, and Rosie, the spotlight on Andrew Scheer is certainly getting awfully bright.
Yeah, the Conservatives expanded their seat count, of course, in the last election, Adrian, but instead of showing their leader appreciation, now many want to show him the door. Andrew Scheer is a man under siege, staring down an insurgency that seems to be gaining momentum. Hannah Thibodeau now on Scheer's fight for his leadership.
I am staying on to fight the fight that Canadians elected us to do.
But many in Andrew Scheer's own party are mobilizing to get him out now.
Now is not the time for internal divisions or internal party politics. That is an unfortunate part of the Conservative tradition in this country.
Today, another voice called for change. Stephen Harper's former campaign director is warning Scheer not to hang on.
It looks like Andrew right now would like to remain as leader. I do not think, though, it's in his best interest or the best interest of the party for the discussions to continue the way that they're happening now.
Some sources believe Scheer can win enough support to keep his job at the leadership review in April. But they say that will only hurt the party.
I feel if he stays on as leader, Justin Trudeau is going to win a majority government next time around.
So efforts are ramping up for Scheer's immediate ouster, including a campaign founded in part by Corey Tenaik, who was involved in Maxime Bernier's failed leadership bid against Scheer.
His election performance was very disappointing, but his post-election performance has been abysmal. He's had no direction, no passion, no conviction. It's quite alarming to see him just fumbling from one day to the next without any clear plan on how the Conservatives are going to win government next time around.
The Conservative Party's official election post-mortem isn't shaping up well for Scheer either. Sources say the message so far has been consistent, that the campaign was a failure and Scheer's performance is partly to blame. Hannah Thibodeau, CBC News, Ottawa.
So good thing At Issue is here with a closer look at Andrew Scheer's troubles and how he's handling it all. Andrew, Chantal, and Paul Wells will kick that around and more in about 20 minutes' time. We've got our eye on another political battle forming tonight. Manitoba is taking a dig at Quebec, and Quebec is firing back. It's about a Manitoba ad campaign to recruit French-speaking public service workers. It lists 21 reasons, a direct shot at Quebec's Bill 21, and it's got people talking. Alison Northcott picks up the story.
If I wanted to be a crime prosecutor, for instance, I can no longer do this.
Law student Siba Shashu is exactly the kind of potential public servant Manitoba wants to attract with this campaign.
It makes me feel really excluded. It doesn't make me feel like I was born and raised here at all.
A common complaint from people affected by Quebec's Bill 21, which forbids some public sector workers from wearing religious symbols on the job.
Does this tempt you? It does. It does. Although previously I've insisted I want to fight this. I want to stay here. This is home for me. This is where I feel I belong. But if this persists, why wouldn't I go somewhere where I am welcome?
The ad lists Manitoba's Francophone community and cultural diversity, along with the Winnipeg Jets and this year's Grey Cup champions, the Blue Bombers. Quebec politicians are not impressed.
Mind your own business. This is a joke. I'm pretty sure that people would rather go to Montreal, Quebec City, and elsewhere in Quebec than to live in Winnipeg or Manitoba.
If Mr. Pallister thinks that he is helping the people here that are the victims of that law, he's doing a big mistake. He's just fueling the rhetoric of François Legault and the Parti québécois.
This money would have been better spent for French services in Manitoba. And I think Mr. Pallister must work to keep his own people in Manitoba, like Dustin Byfuglien with the Jets.
Legault there with a jab at Pallister about troubles the Jets are having with one of their star players. Manitoba's premier says his province needs bilingual civil servants, but he's also sending a message.
This bill may be seen as popular by many people in Quebec and outside of it. That does not make it right.
Both Pallister and Legault will be at the premier's meeting in Toronto next week. Neither say they'll back down from their positions. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
Manitoba's premier has stirred the pot over Bill 21 before. In July, Pallister wrote letters to Quebec professional organizations, some colleges and other institutions, inviting public sector workers to head west. But Andrew, no real takers so far.
Okay, Rosie. Well, the wait continues tonight for a decision on the future of Calgary Flames coach Bill Peters. But we are hearing from the former player who accused Peters of using the N-word repeatedly a decade ago, and it's about Peters' apology. Here's Devin Haru.
After a flurry of reaction and days of speculation, silence as the hockey world waits and watches for the Calgary Flames' next move. And so today was dominated by statements by the two men at the center of all of this. From Flames head coach Bill Peters, a lengthy note to the team last night, apologizing for offensive language used in a professional setting a decade ago. Peters also said he appreciated the thorough review of this situation being undertaken by the Flames. It's the right thing to do, he said, and I support it fully. But no apology to Akim Aliu, who today responded saying he found Peters' words misleading, insincere, and concerning, and that he's accepted an invitation from the NHL to meet and discuss this situation. Meanwhile, the wait continues for a decision from the team.
We are not trying to stall or take time or drag our feet. It's a serious matter.
This legal analyst says the delay all comes down to business.
If the Flames keep a coach
or hang on to Bill Peters as a head coach, someone who has effectively conceded he used the N-word, that at a fundamental level is simply not good for business. So set aside morality, set aside legal issues.
Macramella says the Flames can fire Peters at any minute, but conducting a thorough investigation could be beneficial.
If they fire him with cause, that is good cause, they don't have to pay him out what's owed on his deal. And so they're trying to assess here, can we fire him with cause?
For something he said 10 years ago, precedent setting perhaps in the sports world, and a Calgary Flames team trying its best just to keep playing hockey without a head coach for now. Devin Haru, CBC News, Toronto.
Mammograms are a critical screening tool for breast cancer, but for women with dense breast tissue, they can miss tumors. A new study suggests supplemental MRIs or magnetic resonance imaging could be helpful. As Cass Russi tells us, it may have some patients rethinking their options.
These days, Joan Bush treasures the simplest moments in life, in sharp contrast to worrying events 10 years ago when a routine mammogram revealed a lump in her right breast.
I was sent for further screening at PMH, where I had an ultrasound and biopsies, and ultimately was told that I did have breast cancer.
A lumpectomy was scheduled, but an MRI performed before surgery spotted 3 more tumors in Bush's left breast.
It was the worst day of my life and the best day of my life.
Bush has dense breasts, a trait she shares with about 40% of women. The breast tissue can hide cancerous tumors, making them harder to spot on a mammogram.
The mammogram is looking for things that are white, and when your breast tissue is more dense, it's more white on the x-ray, and it's very hard to see things that are white on white.
A study in the New England Journal of Medicine has found that giving women with dense breasts a supplementary MRI to detect cancer may be more useful than mammograms alone. It involved more than 40,000 Dutch women with extremely dense breasts who had normal results from a mammogram. About 8,000 of the women were also randomly offered an MRI scan. The study found that a supplemental MRI scan was more effective at detecting some cancer.
There is no perfect screening test. Mammography does very well for most women, but for the women who have maybe the 12% of women who have the most dense breasts, we call them extremely dense, mammography, its accuracy tends to fall off. And that's where supplemental screening using MRI or perhaps ultrasound can find cancers that would be missed on mammography.
MRIs are more sensitive and better at detecting smaller tumors earlier, but they're not perfect. They can also produce false positives. Still, Joan Bush is grateful for the MRI screening she got.
They caught it. They were able to treat it. I was able to make the decision to have a bilateral mastectomy, and I'm healthy today.
The question unanswered in the study remains whether an MRI, in addition to a mammogram, improves survival rates. Cass Russi, CBC News, Toronto.
A shooting victim today sued a property owner, an alleged party organizer, and Airbnb for negligence after taking a bullet outside a Toronto home. Katie Nicholson looks into a pop-up house party that turned ugly and certainly wasn't the first to do so.
Right in the back of it on this side, yeah.
The last time Sean McCann was here, he left in an ambulance. It was April, and McCann and his friends had just finished exams and saw this ad for a mansion party. Soon after arriving, he felt uneasy.
People were fighting and pushing each other around, and it just didn't seem great. There was one person I saw with a knife, and that's when we said, you know what, let's go.
He got as far as the backyard when shots were fired. McCann was hit in the back. The bullet went straight through his pelvis and exited through his groin. He woke up in hospital.
The doctor said if it had been an inch to the left, I would have been paralyzed, and an inch to the right, they said I probably would have died.
McCann is seeking $5 million in damages. None of the allegations have been proven in court. The realtor and the alleged party organizer did not respond to repeated requests from CBC News for comment. For its part, Airbnb says the senseless violence reported has no place in the Airbnb community, and we immediately removed the booking guest from our platform in April. Airbnb says the party mansion listing was taken down in September, but neighbors say even after the shooting, wild parties continued here all through the summer. There have been roughly 10 violent incidents connected to Airbnb rentals in the last year in Canada. And on Halloween in California, 5 people were fatally shot when an Airbnb house party got out of control. After that, Airbnb announced that by December 15th, it would take action to identify suspicious reservations and stop unauthorized parties before they start.
It's too little too late. Like, I survived, but a lot of people haven't, and they need to do something to make up for everything that they ignored, and it needs to stop.
Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
And we have lots more still ahead on tonight's National. A little later, At Issue, with their take on all the pressure Conservative leader Andrew Scheer is facing.
But next, why owning a home on Lake Erie these days is to risk watching it slide away.
Water levels on the Great Lakes are unusually high right now, and they'll likely stay that way for several months. It's making an already desperate situation worse for many property owners along the shore of Lake Erie as they watch their homes and cottages slowly slip into the lake. As Ellen Moreau shows us, tackling shoreline erosion is a mammoth endeavor.
A stormy day on Lake Erie, relentless waves battering homes already gutted by their wrath.
All through the years, it's just been kind of eroding away.
Frank Sparks grew up here, his dream of retiring on the beach now being washed away.
You don't know what's going to happen. If I come back out, how much damage, or if everything's going to be lost, everything you worked for all your life.
This year, Lake Erie topped its highest level ever recorded. The high water has fueled widespread shoreline erosion. Down the road, the lake swallows Sue O'Brien's lawn, the water rushing in from the backyard.
7 sandbags with the steel posts driven in.
Yeah. The night before, O'Brien showed us her futile attempts to hold it back. More than $100,000 spent and counting.
It's very stressful. Like we joke, PTSD, and I don't think that's a stretch, but we call it post-traumatic storm disorder.
The capital costs here are very significant.
To fight it, there have been several community meetings, but the proposals to help cost tens of millions of dollars, money that just isn't there.
We bought like the cheapest house in the nicest area, right? So it's not like we have money to go and fix this problem on our own.
Yeah, this was our family room.
Chris Bradley couldn't fix it on his own either. Most of his cottage destroyed by the water that used to be 12 meters away.
My wife can't come down here. The emotional toll on all of us is frankly too much.
Bradley had little choice but to have the rest of the building torn down.
I expected, to come down here and, see my grandchildren hanging out here with us, and instead I'm watching it, disappear.
It's a fate others fear. With no widespread plan to ease the erosion, homeowners like Sue O'Brien are paying the price for living beside a rising lake.
If this breaches, we're gone.
Gone, like new house, new place.
Yep. Well, bankrupt.
Bankrupt.
Yep.
Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Erie Beach, Ontario.
Among the other stories we're following tonight, heavy winds, snow, and rain caused chaos in parts of Atlantic Canada. Look at that. The area around Halifax took the brunt of today's weather system, leading to commuter chaos on the roads. Numerous flight cancellations. Heavy congestion continues to be seen throughout the province. At its peak, Nova Scotia Power reported more than 43,000 customers were in the dark. Vancouver is the latest Canadian municipality to crack down on single-use plastics.
What we're going to be doing is starting with an education-based approach to enforcement to allow businesses time to transition. So we'll be providing a lot of support in terms of education materials.
Starting in April, single-use straws will be banned across the city, and a plastic bag ban will follow in 2021. Businesses will also be required to charge 25 cents for disposable cups, and restaurants will only be allowed to give out plastic utensils on request. Businesses could be fined for non-compliance, but the city says it will be lenient during the transition. PEI and Nova Scotia have both moved forward on province-wide plastic bag bans. And 24-year-old Nicholas Latifi has become the latest Canadian to secure a spot behind the wheel of a Formula One race car.
Definitely feel a great sense of pride, representing Canada on the world stage. I'm extremely excited, extremely motivated, and I can't wait to get started.
He's from Montreal, and he will race for the Williams team. He'll join 21-year-old Lance Stroll on the racetrack next season, making this the first time in the prestigious circuit's history that 2 full-time racing seats will belong to Canadians.
And just ahead on tonight's program, a CBC News Marketplace update. What's happened since it revealed a Toronto plastic surgeon had hidden cameras in his exam room?
And later, 30 years after 96 people died in a crush at a British soccer stadium, a jury reaches a controversial verdict.
An update tonight on a story we told you that led to 2 official investigations. Our CBC Marketplace colleagues uncovered security cameras inside a doctor's examination rooms where patients undress. And today, some of those former patients took legal action. Makta Gabraselassie has this exclusive.
Sometimes the news that pops up on your phone is shocking. It was for this woman when last year she found CBC's story about Dr. Martin Eugenberg's clinic and the security cameras in patient rooms.
I remember I was walking through my basement reading it, and then I literally fell onto the chair. And I was overcome with humiliation.
Just months before she went to the plastic surgeon's clinic for a consultation, we're protecting her identity.
There was no mention of any cameras, and the only camera I saw was the camera the nurse used to take photos, after I had disrobed.
The cameras were unexpectedly spotted during a larger hidden camera investigation into the marketing of breast implants.
I have a question. Is there a camera out there?
Yes, that's for the doctor's record.
Oh, okay. I don't really feel comfortable being unclothed in front of the camera.
At the time, Dr. Eugenberg said they were for security reasons. Almost a year later, he could face a class action lawsuit. JC is one of 2 plaintiffs, and the other is a woman we first interviewed in May.
I felt violated, and he had no right to do that.
You know what? I think I do see what you mean.
The team of lawyers filed the paperwork today, asking for $75 million with more to come.
Just shocking to hear that a doctor would do that, given their position of authority and the special relationship that a physician has with their patient.
They also allege Dr. Eugenberg posted photos and videos of patients on social media without consent. Eugenberg has previously denied this. The allegations have not been proven in court.
Meanwhile, Ontario's Privacy Commissioner found the doctor broke the rules. These documents say the cameras were rolling 24/7. The footage was deleted about every 30 days. And Dr. Eugenberg had access to the live feed on his phone. The cameras have since been removed from examination rooms, but JC says it's not enough.
Even though the cameras are no longer rolling, he still has to be held accountable.
Dr. Eugenberg still faces misconduct allegations. The College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario has rescheduled a hearing for next year. Makta Gabraselassie, CBC News, Toronto.
And our Marketplace colleagues reached out to Dr. Eugenberg this afternoon for a response, but they have yet to hear back.
Stay with us. Rosie will be back in 2 minutes with the At Issue panel. Chantal, Andrew, and Paul Wells on the Conservative Party's growing dissent over Andrew Scheer's leadership.
And later on This American Thanksgiving, how the impeachment drama is playing in a U.S. community.
I am staying on to fight the fight that Canadians elected us to do. Now is not the time for internal divisions or internal party politics. Many people have opinions on what happened in the campaign. We're going through all of that. Clearly, there are aspects that need to be improved upon. I will be making the case to our members that we need to stay united and stay focused.
Andrew Scheer today vowed to stay on as Conservative leader despite the growing criticism around his performance during the election and even calls for him to step down. So does Scheer have enough support from his caucus, from members? Is this the best strategy for the party? It's Thursday. Time to bring in At Issue. How I missed them all. Chantal Hébert is in Montreal, Andrew Coyne is in Toronto, and Paul Wells is with me here in Ottawa tonight. Good to see everybody. I'm going to start with you, Andrew, if I can. It doesn't seem as though the criticism around Scheer is going away. In fact, it seems as though people are emboldened. Like the more they hear of other people saying things, the more they feel comfortable saying something too. What do you make, I guess, of how he's handling the ratcheting up of the pressure?
Well, he's not. I mean, this is the worst possible situation for the Conservatives, where a leader who's vowing to stay and large sections of the party determined he should go, which means on present form another 6 months of this, leading quite possibly to a completely inconclusive result at the convention, where he gets something like 70, 75%. Nobody can figure out whether it's enough or not. Mm-hmm. This is the nightmare scenario for them. It's to some extent, this is a reflection of the way in which he was elected. He was elected as the leader as the kind of compromise choice, everybody's second choice, the guy who people could live with, be equally dissatisfied with. And on the way up, that can work. People can decide that they're willing to compromise. When you're on the downside, then everybody suddenly discovers how dissatisfied they are with you for differing reasons. So he's getting hit by both the progressive wing of the party saying you're too social conservative, the social conservatives saying you weren't social conservative enough, the Quebec wing saying you can't win. Everybody and his dogs now found a reason why they were never in favor of his leadership. And that's not a very good situation for him.
And the response today, Chantal, didn't seem, or I don't know, maybe you can't admit that you're aware of that, but it seemed to be sort of as though he was living on a different planet than the one I'm observing.
Yes, and that doesn't make it true. You can repeat something forever, and it doesn't help. Most of the criticism comes from every single quarter of the party. Something called a Scheer loyalist is really hard to find, and when you're deputy leader in the House of Commons, which presumably would be the person that would have the party's back in the House while you're trying to campaign for your own job, is someone who has spent more time on the Liberal benches than on the Conservative benches. It also does not speak to a very strong palace guard on the inside. I think part of the problem is that as Conservatives are well aware, even many of the people who voted Conservative voted for the party, but very few of them said, I'm really voting for Andrew Scheer because that's who has brought me to say this is the party I want, and I'm not sure you can fix that.
Paul, what do you make of it?
If there are Scheer loyalists, and if there are Conservatives at a minimum, even if they're not Scheer loyalists, people who are perfectly happy to have him as the leader because they're bedrock Conservative loyalists, they should show up tomorrow night at the United Conservative Party convention in Calgary, where the Alberta provincial base of the Conservative movement is going to be gathered. If he gets a good reception there, that might help. So far, we've mostly heard from Toronto-based Conservatives who backed other candidates and my colleagues in the press gallery. I hasten to add, we haven't heard from almost anyone in the Conservative Party who supports him. If that were to continue tomorrow night, if we were to go through this weekend and it was going to be an eerie silence in the convention hall in Calgary, then I think that would suggest that basically nobody in the party has his back, and he would be in even bigger trouble than he is tonight.
I mean, we're hearing a couple of things that John Baird, who had been tasked with doing this post-mortem, has finished it, and the conclusions are Andrew Scheer doesn't have a great number of leadership skills and people aren't that happy with him. I guess that'll be public at some point, and that people have said to Scheer, you might want to think about what you want to do over the Christmas break. And that's obviously come from people beside him and critics. So is that what we're headed towards, someone who is feeling the pressure ratchet up so much that they has to leave before April?
The reason why this all seems to be happening in fast forward,
yes,
and we have been watching a pylon, is because of the minority status of the government and the fact that an election is not going to be in 4 years at a set date that you can predict in advance. And so, yes, we have all heard the same things.
Yeah.
Basically, there is some consensus amongst people who are not just the press gallery or people in Toronto, but many people who were identified very closely to Stephen Harper, for instance, and who have fought those battles, that Scheer should not be allowed to go on until April in a battle that he will emerge from even weaker than he is going in, and that ideally he should be gone by the end of the year. Whether that happens or not, whether that's wishful thinking, I can't tell you. But for sure, that is the goal.
Or something has to change. Like something has to markedly change in the way he's approaching things, Andrew, if he plans to hang on.
Yeah, I don't think there's much he can really change. I mean, there's a lot of things the party has to change. He is a symptom rather than a cause of a lot of the Conservative weakness. Their failure to define themselves, their unwillingness to say what they stand for because they're afraid they can't actually sell it. And some of the things that people are criticizing Scheer for are exactly in that pattern. So as I say, to some extent he's being unfairly blamed for this, but in and of himself, you know, there's two reasons why you might have a large base of support in the party. Either because you yourself have some compelling personal qualities that people are attached to and want to support, or because you represent some particular wing of the party. And I think what we're finding is he's got neither of those bases of support, neither in his own persona nor in terms of what he stands for within the party. And so, to echo my colleagues, you know, it's not so much the cries of his critics that's really damning him at this point, it's the silence of his supposed supporters.
Well, it makes you sort of realize, and Paul, you would be able to speak to this all too well, how good Stephen Harper was at keeping all those groups together, that coalition together. And maybe it's not a fair comparison, but it doesn't seem as though Scheer is reaching out in any way, the way Harper might have.
It's funny, I talked to a former Harper staffer about 2 years ago who said the thing that people didn't really understand is how much time he spent reconciling the various factions in the party. Look, their opponents just say all Conservatives are, they're all the same, you know, but it doesn't feel that way to Conservatives. And balancing off interests against interest was a preoccupation of the former prime ministers. I'm sure Andrew would say to the expense of thinking about how the country should actually be governed. Look, it helps to have more than one play in politics, and Andrew Scheer is running the same play for a third time. He won the leadership by hanging around until anxiety and concern about Maxime Bernier peaked, and then he won essentially by default. His campaign was a monument to the thought that governments defeat themselves, and he sat around waiting for Justin Trudeau to do that. And now he's waiting for what to me is an unprecedented groundswell against him to essentially die out, and there's no guarantee that that's the way it's going to go.
Yeah, and talking about things that, you know, I'm not sure, I mean, today he was talking a lot about national unity, which will bring us to this next subject, but I wasn't sure I felt the same pressure there, and I wasn't sure why he was bringing it up. So let's go there. Chrystia Freeland doing a bit of a listening tour. The new Deputy Prime Minister, she met with Premier Kenney, she met with Premier Moe, just a taste of what those two premiers had to say.
We're looking forward to having a productive conversation today about how we can find common ground. And Albertans are looking for a fair deal, and I certainly hope we can get down to some positive conversations about how to do that.
You know, we had a good and cordial meeting with the Deputy Prime Minister. Appreciate her making the effort to come out and engage with myself here in the province of Saskatchewan and other leaders around the nation.
Okay, I don't have much time, but it did seem to me like maybe a little slight dial down from the weeks previous. Chantal?
I think that both premiers, Kenney and Moe, needed a reason to climb down from their rhetoric in the lead up to the meeting on Monday with the other premiers, and to the reality that, well, you know, a majority in the House of Commons, Liberal, NDP, Bloc, do not think the way that they had hoped that the government would be inclined to think. And I think Chrystia Freeland has not resolved any issues, but has given them a path to climbing down, and they have taken it.
Paul?
One thing we've seen is that it's almost always a good idea to have a meeting. If the opposite, if the alternative is to let that person stew by themselves and brood over how they're being snubbed. I think one thing that students of the Trudeau Prime Ministership will take away is that never again should a Prime Minister be their own intergovernmental affairs minister, because inevitably that means they don't have one.
Yes. Andrew?
I think this is mostly positioning. I agree with Chantal. They're climbing down in rhetorical terms. I don't think you're going to see them climbing down in terms of the substance of their positions. Sure. But you don't want to overplay your hand in politics, and you don't want to be seen to be the bad guy, to be the intransigent one. So it was an opportunity for them to sound a little more statesmanlike. No doubt, probably in the meeting, she probably rubs them a little less badly the way that Trudeau would. She probably is a bit better at the diplomatic arts, having dealt with Trump. But we'll see how long this peace lasts, because I don't think, to take up a point we made last time, I don't think she's got a lot she can offer them.
Although, you know, when you have Doug Ford acting as sort of the great unifier of the country, I would imagine that inspires...
That's how much trouble we're in.
I would imagine that inspires Jason Kenney to say, whoa. Just last thought on that, Chantal. What does that meeting next week, what needs to happen there at that Premier's meeting?
They need to come out of it not looking like they're a bunch of cats and dogs that were thrown together for an afternoon. So they're going to have to try really hard to find some common ground. In federal, provincial politics, that usually means finding something that they can all agree on that Ottawa is doing wrong.
What might that be, Andrew, do you think?
More money. It's almost always some combination of money and powers. Yeah. And I agree with Chantal, that's the only thing they can usually agree on.
Last word to you, Paul.
Every premier who's come to Justin Trudeau in the last month complaining about equalization has been told by the Prime Minister, look, there's no problem here. You guys agree among yourselves as among premiers and tell me what the solution is. It's a devilish response.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. That was a good one. Before we go, be sure to subscribe to At Issue, the podcast, for extra content. This week, we're going to look ahead briefly to next week's throne speech. Look for it on iTunes, any major podcast app, our website, cbcnews.ca/thenational.
That was a good one. Okay, stay with us. We're back in 2 minutes' time with Donald Trump's Thanksgiving surprise, a whirlwind visit to U.S. troops in Afghanistan.
I'm Jamie Poisson, and tomorrow on CBC's daily news podcast Front Burner, after a Chinese company pulled a social video critical of the mass detention of Uyghurs, we look at TikTok, censorship, and politics. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back. Even 30 years later, England's Hillsborough tragedy still has the power to shock. Back then, 96 soccer fans were crushed to death. Today, the police commander in charge that night was cleared of criminal responsibility.
People are found to have been unlawfully killed to a criminal standard by an inquest jury. And somebody has got to be held responsible for 96 deaths. It's the biggest sporting disaster in British legal history.
Former Chief Superintendent David Duckenfield was found not guilty today of gross negligence manslaughter. The court heard that as that game was getting underway, but with a huge bottleneck of fans still trying to get in, Duckenfield ordered the exit gates opened to let them in more quickly. More than 2,000 fans then flooded into the place where the crush happened. According to an earlier inquest, that was the direct cause of all those deaths. In Texas tonight, firefighters working against a fire at a gas plant that's forced the evacuation of more than 50,000 people. The flames aren't as big as they were yesterday, but thick black smoke continues to pour out of the plant. Everyone within a 6.5-kilometer radius has been told to leave. Officials are monitoring the air quality closely. 3 workers were hurt in the initial explosion. No word yet on the cause. Donald Trump has made a surprise visit to Afghanistan, where he attended a turkey dinner with U.S. troops.
There's nowhere I'd rather celebrate this Thanksgiving than right here with the toughest, strongest, best and bravest warriors on the face of the earth.
It was the president's first trip to the country and his second to a war zone where American troops are stationed. He also announced that peace talks with the Taliban have restarted, and he took time to meet with the president of Afghanistan.
And this being American Thanksgiving, we're taking a visit to Fredericksburg, Virginia, where people are not talking turkey, they are chewing over impeachment. Paul Hunter listens in. That's in 2 minutes. Welcome back. In the wake of blockbuster impeachment hearings, there's little debate now over what the U.S. president did and little movement in the polls, which show just under half the country supports him anyway. But polls are snapshots, they're not stories. So for one of those, we turn to Paul Hunter in a Virginia swing district bracing for its Thanksgiving weekend, deadlocked over Donald Trump.
On a bright and sunny day in downtown Fredericksburg, Virginia, it's Thanksgiving week in America. A time to consider the warm weather, the fall colors, and these days, surprise, surprise, Donald Trump.
We're with Canadian television.
Okay.
We've been in the impeachment hearings all week. Have you?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Well, I can't say it on camera, but
Say it.
I'll kick his ass out. Plain and simple.
But here's the thing about those impeachment hearings. Say any number of polls in this country, they didn't actually move public opinion much. As we found in Fredericksburg, in an admittedly random and unscientific survey, opinions on Trump are as divided as ever. having soaked in all that testimony.
I would still vote for Trump. In my opinion, he hasn't done anything that any other president before him hasn't done. It's just they're calling more attention to him, and there's been other presidents that have done far worse.
And on the other side of the great divide.
Did you watch any of the hearings?
I watched it a little of it.
What do you think?
I think he's guilty. Pretty much.
Did you think that before the hearings?
Yes.
In other words, when it comes to Trump, opinions are what they were. Still, as we were reminded, there was value in watching the testimony.
What did you learn about your president?
I learned that he's a bully, and that some people did not go along with what he was doing, and they told the truth.
And they're pushing that impeachment witch hunt.
As ever, Donald Trump has his own views on what America thinks of it all.
Everybody said, that's really bullshit.
And the crowd cheered. But then again, it's a Trump rally. Back on Main Street, Fredericksburg, thoughts on impeachment remain split.
I think it should go ahead. Personally, would rather see, the election take place and have him being voted out, but I think he's doing harm to the country.
No, it's just the other party trying to go ahead and bring him down. And they come up with different things just to go ahead and bring him down.
All that said, there is something, at least today, on which all seem to agree. On this American Thanksgiving, no politics at the dinner table.
I'm actually not having dinner with one of my brothers in Richmond because of that.
Because?
Of the divisiveness in our family.
Because of the current political climate.
3 years of divisiveness, yes. It's very sad.
A feeling shared by most we met on a day they used to be able to set it all aside. Not anymore. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Fredericksburg, Virginia.
And just ahead, a police force in Atlanta has some fun at their own expense. Suffice to say, it's about the loss of some donuts, and it's our moment next.
Gear up for a new season of the show that's being called a word-of-mouth phenomenon.
There's a little something going on.
Check it out! Kim's Convenience on CBC and CBC Gem.
So police officers in Brookhaven, Georgia, answered a call they themselves say no officer wants to hear. Donuts scattered along the curb and into the gutter. So they did their duty, but decided to poke fun at themselves at the same time. The reaction to their playful statement is our moment.
Honest to goodness, pulling up to it, I just thought, no, this is a waste of perfectly good food. There were no actual traffic incidents, no crashes. Only the donuts met their demise. We don't even like to be seen in public with donuts because people kind of make jokes. We thought this was just a good chance to kind of play on a stereotype, but still, talk about a real event that had happened and just kind of have fun with it and engage our public. Another police department, maybe 20 miles or so north of us, actually had 24 donuts delivered to us, sort of with their condolences. They said they hoped it would help us cope with the loss. In fact, a day after we posted it, someone who had seen the post in Arizona actually had another couple dozen donuts delivered to our police station. In total seriousness, I think this is a great example of sort of never knowing what's going to take off. Everybody's been hugely positive, sort of sending their condolences and laughing about it with us.
How they didn't know a story about cops and donuts would take off is completely beyond me. I love that story for your loss. Hope this helps.
Yeah. No, very, very funny. And I mean, good on them for kind of taking it in stride because, like, I empathize with them in the sense that I feel like every profession has at least one kind of cringy joke that they have to deal with by people who are not part of that profession. And for like the number of times that I've gotten the question, oh, hey, do you guys have to wear pants behind the desk? And of course, the answer is
the answer
well, I
to
was going
that.
to say sometimes.
Oh, nice. Boy, this went south really fast.
That's the National for this Thursday, November 28th.
Good night.